Working either. I don't think it's on. It could be me, but
Oh, how do I get to that?
I didn't know what to do.
we tried that. Didn't do anything. You know, first my sign's down.
I just turned on my computer, help!
Uh-oh, she turned hers on. Well, you still have a little blue light. I don't even have a little blue light, so.
You did, I saw your blue light.
Did I have a little blue light?
You had a blue light before I touched your computer.
Hope she's coming with more signs, so.
No big.
Hi there, how are you? Good to see you.
Sharon has voting and stuff, I have no nothing on mine. Somebody bring me this basket.
Yes.
Thank you, I'll take it. I won't. It'll be on television. Write it. I put it out there and I said, everyone, I'm looking for baskets. I'm not working.
Yep, mine's not working either.
Mine is.
We don't work. You can text that.
No, we did the toggle. And that's not.
Okay. Usually go like this. So, look, see, just here. And then, oh, there's that. But then I need this.
Do we not hold it?
And then someone always has always touch something and then it just happens.
You didn't get a stand for your sign? Now your machine's not working.
You guys don't want me. I no.
I just hope that they're dead, but I guess I'm working free.
I don't know where to go.
And all our members are here, so I guess you're gonna have to look at somebody else's riders.
No, I did not, but you know what? There is a brand new program. They're working on people
These are,
to.
do those work? These are on, yeah.
Okay. Oh, should we move?
I'll move.
Yeah, I don't know why yours is not.
Why am I have not? I'm just happy penguins.
Hard green pistol.
Where do you see this?
This
Yeah, that is concerns me.
Technical difficulties.
There we go.
Oh, no,
Probably should take my name tag now.
no, that's something totally different.
Dee Dee,
You want to use
hand me
mine?
my name tag.
Really? Why don't you use mine? Because it isn't my thing, it is my thing. Here, you come use mine, I'll sit there, okay? I want to stay close to turn so I can give them.
All right, in case you get gabbled. That way you can be gabbled.
Probably like to grab me there.
I've been
Here,
gabbled.
I won't show my Cubs shirt. Although they lost today, like typical Cubs.
Is this my purse?
Oh, that's mine. You don't want it to be vibrating on. You're going to go, oh, Dee, your vibrator's
Okay. Are we ready, Kelly? You ready?
Let me get start.
Go.
Oh, I can sign in.
It didn't do anything. Okay.
All right, we're running.
Okay. Calling the,
Did you get the same?
Yes, I got the same thing.
the October 11th meeting of the Natural Resource Committee to order.
Right.
I'm going to take a moment here to have us all introduce ourselves to Kelly Musburger. It's actually Kelly Reed. You've got an
Yeah.
old sign up there.
Yes.
I don't have a new one.
You haven't got a new one. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and not only introduce ourselves, but maybe get no more than a two-sentence description of what you do and why you're interested, but just to let Kelly know what we are. You want to start, Nancy?
Good deal.
I'm Nancy Broshot, and I've been on the committee a little over a year now, and I'm a professor of environmental studies at Linfield College in McMinnville. But I lived in Oregon City for over 30 years, so.
Wow.
She's my hero. My name is Dorothy Dalsred. I live in Oregon City since migration of 75, so that makes me long-time stander. I do sales and marketing and hug trees. That's why I'm here.
I'm Jerry Herman. Doug and I and about 3 other people helped found this thing a long time ago. And I've had a long interest in the environment. I ran an environmental center and still work with youth on those subjects. And so I'm here. I'm an infidel for wildlife.
I'm Doug Neely, Chair, and my professional area is statistical analysis, but it's all been applied to natural resource issues.
I'm Trent Warnes. I've lived in Oregon City for a little over 3 years now. I work as a forester and for a timber management company, and just decided to throw my hat in the ring and volunteer.
Good.
Matt Cool, I think I'm the newbie on the committee, been a member for about 10 months and a resident for a year and a half. I work in partner management and interested in how natural resources affect economic development.
My name is Bill Clark, and I'm a retired environmental scientist and wildlife and fishery biologist.
Great, thank you. And should I introduce myself?
Absolutely.
Almost everything on this name tag is wrong. So, my name is Kelly Reed, and I'm a planner with the city. I've been here for 5 years, and I will be taking over the Historic Review Board and Historic Review duties very soon here. And you'll have to bear with me tonight because I don't often run the meetings myself, and I'll look to Doug for some coaching if I'm a little lost. So, thanks for that.
I tend to forget some things. Towards the end, I was talking to Trent. You made a presentation about the trail from McLaughlin up to Kanema Park to the Natural Resource Committee.
Yep.
We had a presentation, but it was much earlier in the year, and of course things have changed. If you would, work with Pete to get yourself on the agenda to make a presentation to this
Absolutely.
committee, it'd be really appreciated.
Absolutely, and I could give you a quick update today at the end of the meeting
Okay.
if you'd like me to.
Yeah, that'd be
I'm more
great.
than happy to do that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And anything changes or additions to the agenda we have?
Only the draft letter that, when I approached this committee 2 months ago about supporting Waterboard Park,
Yes.
I said I'd get a letter. Actually, I did it myself after talking with Brian Boyce. Brian didn't have time to.
Okay, we'll take a look at that later on and discuss it later on. Anything else? We have a presentation today, and the presentation is from the Columbia Land Trust and the Audubon Society. And would you come forward and speak into the microphones, introduce yourselves, and which organization or organizations you're representing here? And I presume it's a common presentation.
It is. Do we need this on? Should I worry about turning
Yes,
this on?
please make sure the red lights are on.
Is the red light
It's
on?
on.
It is on. Oh, I just
And
have
then-
to sit
Yeah.
closer.
Are
Okay.
you gonna advance our slides?
Oh,
Like or is
there's
there?
a remote here. Oh.
I'll start. My name is Susie Peterson. I am one of the program managers. We're both program managers for the Backyard Habitat Certification Program. I technically work for the Columbia Land Trust.
And my name's Nikki West. I am one of the co-managers with Susie, and I represent the Audubon Society of Portland. So, let's just get started. I'm actually gonna time
We're not
us.
getting the slides on our machine apparently.
I can check
You
that. Yeah.
Okay.
You'll strain your neck and turn
Well,
around.
we'll go ahead and start. We'll turn our heads around to watch the presentation, but usually we can get this on our screen
Okay.
as well, so.
Like this.
Did
Sure.
yours come up?
No, but I like the size up there.
Okay.
However, this is not advancing.
She's also not able to.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. And she's having
Going home,
some
so if you turn
clicking to the
power-
next side, I guess.
There's a power button.
Okay.
That works.
Minor details.
And that didn't come up on mine.
Okay,
He's
well,
working
I'll
his
start.
way.
So, yeah, as we mentioned, this is a partnership between the Columbia Land Trust and Audubon Society of Portland. And I don't know if people are familiar with the Columbia Land Trust, but it's a nonprofit, mostly based out of Vancouver, Washington, although my office is in Portland. And it conserves land right along the Columbia River, all the way out past Hood River and on all the way back to the coast. So there's that huge swath of land that they conserve and care for. So they protect lands, and their interest in the Backyard Habitat Program is to help create wildlife corridors through the urban areas. And so they see this as a really integral part of connecting animals to wildlife corridors.
Okay, so, and just a short word about the Audubon Society of Portland. Folks might be familiar with the work that we do. The name is a bit of a misnomer because we actually work statewide to conserve and protect wildlife and the habitat that they depend on. So we do that through a wide range of activities. We have a lot of educational programming for youth and adults, camps and classes, but the heart of what we do is conservation programming. So a lot of advocacy, litigation, long-range conservation planning work, policy work. And the Backyard Habitat Program for us fits within that conservation programming because we see it as a way to create a region that's more permeable for wildlife. We have 367 species of birds and other wildlife that call our region home. And we believe that a program like the Backyard Habitat Program creates more permeability for them to live and survive and find their resources. And then at the same time, it connects people not just to their yards, but to broader conservation goals, to the broader work that we're doing on policy fronts. So I like to start out with this note about, do backyards matter? And for a long time, people didn't think that urban and suburban areas mattered when it came to conservation. They saw our region kind of like that, where there's just a lot of gray in the center. And then we became more sophisticated in our mapping, and over the last 30 years, if you zoom in on the red areas, birds and wildlife live at a scale more like this, or even much more zoomed in. And when you're at this level, you see that features like tree canopy in a neighborhood and a school or a religious institution in the upper left-hand corner, they have natural resources that matter. It's estimated that 40% of the metro area is in people's backyards. And so we put a lot of investment in parks and natural areas when 40% of that area we're responsible for in our own yard. And so the idea with a program like Backyard Habitat is we're encouraging people to take charge and be better stewards of that land as a way to leverage the work that all of you are doing in the city. So we love this quote. It's kind of the basis of what we do. Douglas Talmy, who said it, is an entomologist for the University of Delaware, and he's done a lot of research on the relevance of native plants and habitat for insects. And he says we have to raise the bar in our landscapes. In the past, we've asked one thing of our gardens, that they be pretty. Now they have to support life, sequester carbon, feed pollinators, and manage water. So the idea is that as a gardener in your yard, you have a lot more power than you once thought you did. You're not just building a garden that is pretty, but it also serves all these really important functions. So the mission of the Backyard Habitat Program is that we're providing technical assistance, incentives, recognition to small lot private property owners as they restore native wildlife, reduce pesticides, and manage stormwater at home. So we like to say that we're planting roots. Oh, there's 2 commas. Creating habitat and transforming the world 1 yard at a time. And so just a short history of the program. This slide just shows that the program is growing a lot over the years. We try to manage our program growth sustainably, and we only grow as we secure funding that can make it sustainable. The last thing we would want to do is grow into a new area and then not be able to keep it up. So it started in the Southwest Hills as a pilot way back in 2006. The pilot was super successful, and there was a summit where people got together and thought, let's take this citywide in Portland. And that was when the Audubon Society and Three Rivers Land Conservancy launched a citywide Portland program in 2009. Later, the Columbia Land Trust absorbed the Three Rivers Land Conservancy. And then we went to Lake Oswego, Gresham, and Fairview. And then in 2017, we started moving into other areas of Clackamas County, including Westland and Milwaukee and Oak Grove and Jennings Lodge. We should have a 2018 that says all the places we're going in the upcoming year, but we'll talk about that later. So just an overview of how the program works. So people that live on 1 acre or less sign up. They pay a one-time $35 fee, and so it's all they pay the whole time. That's their enrollment cost. Once they sign up, they get an assessment from one of our habitat technicians. Our habitat technicians are staff, so they're paid professionals that usually have a background in either landscape design, horticulture. They have a wide range of backgrounds, and a lot of community organizing kind of work. They're great people. So they come out and do a 1-hour assessment with the property owner where they go over the habitat opportunities. They point out invasive weeds if they have them and talk about how to eradicate those invasive weeds. They provide a resource packet that's full of plant lists and coupons to local nurseries. And then they listen to the property owner. What are your goals? What are you hoping to accomplish? And so they spend that 1 hour assessing the yard, and then they go back and they write up a site report that details the steps that the property owner would have to take to get certified. And then at that point, the property owner is, you know, they're not on their own. They have our support, but they use that resource packet and the site report, the plant sales that we offer to get dirty and build habitat in their yards. So they have a template that they're following that we provide for them. And when they feel like they reach the certification criteria and they've achieved the things that we laid out, then they call us back and we come back out and assess the property a second time. The follow-up is all done by volunteers. That helps us keep our costs lower by using volunteers, and it just helps get more people involved. So we try to assign all of the volunteers geographically, so when we move into new areas, we recruit new volunteers for that area. So it's a cool way to, you know, build more community around this kind of work. Folks get a cool certification sign that they can use to show their neighbors that they get certified. The sign is a really effective marketing tool for us. It's how most people claim that they heard about the program. And then they get some fun perks and benefits for getting certified, like membership to the Columbia Land Trust and Portland Audubon, et cetera. And they're encouraged to upgrade their certification to higher levels over time and to renew it. The certification's good for 3 years. And so then they get notices like, your certification has expired, please renew. So that's the basic gist for how it works. And then the certification criteria itself is based in 5 elements: removing invasive plants, planting native plants, reducing pesticides, stewarding wildlife, and managing stormwater on site. Susie will go into more detail about those. And then the criteria also has 3 levels, which is kind of fun. There's silver, gold, and platinum. There's really not much of a difference between the 3 levels. It's a sticker on your sign, but it's very motivational for people.
You can ask for any one of the stickers you want.
I mean, I was one of the people before I had this job. I've been doing this about 6 years, but I had a certified backyard habitat beforehand, and I really wanted those gold stars to move up in certification level. So it really works for people. And the idea is that within those 5 categories of certification, invasive plants, native plants, you have to do more and more in each category to achieve the higher levels. And it's a pretty effective system.
Okay, so I'll talk about the different certification criteria. We're probably preaching to the choir here when we talk about these 5 different components, but I'll go ahead and go through them in case there are any folks here who aren't familiar with the concepts. The first one is to remove invasive weeds. Obviously, invasive weeds cause a huge problem. They outcompete natives. There's a guaranteed loss of biodiversity when you have a lot of invasive weeds. Over 100 million acres are damaged each year in U.S. crops, which equals about $1.4 trillion to the a $1.4 trillion hit to the economy. This doesn't include impact on human health, community, habitat, or clean water. And so just some examples of different weeds that we encourage people to remove: blackberry and ivy to reach silver certification, Italian arum and lesser celandine to reach gold, and reed, canary grass, and tree of heaven to reach platinum. Those are just examples. They both have pretty long lists, actually, but these are the most common ones. Native plants, of course, support wildlife much more than ornamental plants or invasive weeds, and so we encourage people to plant a significant amount of those. To reach silver certification, you only need 5% of native plants in your yard. And the reason for that is that we want there to be kind of an entry point. We want to make it accessible. Once people get into the program, they tend to learn more and see the difference of wildlife in their yard, and then they're encouraged to move on up the levels. But we start at 5% for silver, and then move up to 15% for gold, and then finally 50% for platinum. Stormwater is a big component of the program. We encourage people to manage stormwater on site as much as possible if there's a way to do that. So different things that we encourage are planting large canopy trees, disconnecting downspouts when it makes sense, restoring soils by leaving the leaves, and adopting eco-friendly maintenance practices like not irrigating in the middle of the day or watering grass during the summer, that kind of thing. We do have at least one city, and we have a few more that are using our stormwater data for their MS4 permitting. I don't know if that means anything to anyone here, but just to throw it out there, if anyone's in that world, that can happen. Wildlife is another big component. We encourage people to support wildlife as much as possible. This means different things for different people. Some people really love to support pollinators by planting wildlife meadows. Other people love having birds around, so they install nest boxes. We have a lot of folks who host mason bees or other bees, other native bees. So that's something that people have a lot of fun with. Some of the goals are to minimize hazards such as window strikes, outdoor cats, pesticides, and invasive plants to support the wildlife. And then pesticide reduction is another big component of this. Most of the people who sign up for the program are already doing pretty well at not using a lot of toxins in their yards, but still, this is a really great resource that we provide. It's Grow Smart, Grow Safe, and this is actually a Metro app, and Metro runs this website, but they have a whole list of the different pesticides and herbicides and which ones have different toxicity levels. They also provide a lot of information on things that you can do instead of using pesticides and herbicides. And then we also work with about 35 professional landscapers who can be hired by program participants if the participant needs help in their yard. So if they're having a really hard time getting rid of a weed, or if they just aren't very physically able and they need some support, we have this list of professionals who do this. By supporting these folks, we're also supporting the local green economy. Last year, our professional landscapers reported that they earned about $70,000 on projects from backyard participants. And then here are accomplishments from, I think this must have been last.
It's overall.
This is total. Okay, so these are our total accomplishments. We have 4,200 total properties enrolled, over 1,000 acres of enrolled properties, 1,800 certified, 7,800 volunteer hours, and program participants have planted over 55,300 native trees and shrubs.
This is in the metro region, is that?
This is in the metro region, yeah. And I think we talked about the areas that we're serving, but it's basically Portland, Gresham, Fairview, and then we've expanded down into parts of Clackamas County. And here's a map that kind of illustrates that. You can see the triangles represent the properties in the program.
They're kind of sparse down there.
But we just started I mean, it was just April was our first site visit. So this is just since April. We've been really impressed with the participation.
And actually, this map was, we only update the maps periodically. So this map actually was created in April 2017. So it was only created about 2 weeks after we launched the program.
Yeah.
So
we will point out that Oregon City is the oldest city west of the Rocky Mountains, chartered city with elected government, and it's not even listed.
That's because it'll be there next year. When we produce this map next year, it'll be on there.
that's why we're here tonight.
Yeah, because in April, we expanded into Milwaukee, Westland, Oak Grove, and Jennings Lodge. Okay. But what's next is your area. Oregon City, Gladstone, Happy Valley, Damascus, and Wilsonville those are the cities that will be expanding into this coming March or April. So we're very excited about that. It's been really great. We've worked a lot with the Clackamas Soil Water Conservation District and Water Environment Services. Yeah, it's been a great partnership. And so if you're finding this really interesting and you're hoping to participate when we arrive in the spring, things you can do are sign up on our website at backyardhabitats.org. If you go ahead and enroll now, you'll end up on our waiting list. You'll check the box that we're not in your area yet, but in the spring when we are, we'll pull people who have already enrolled and are on that waiting list, and you'll be the first ones to get a site visit. You can also help us promote our official expansion in the spring, and so we'll be looking for outreach, ways to connect with the community and get the word out in the spring. So And then we also brought flyers, if that's something that we could leave maybe here at City Hall, or if people are interested in taking them and handing them out to their neighbors or anybody they think might be interested, that would be great. And then if you are or know a landscaper, we'll be looking for landscapers in this area to add to our list. And then feel free to check out our website. We actually have tons of information on our website. So if you're interested in just kind of looking through and gathering some information on your own, our website's a great place to visit. And so I think that's pretty much it. These are our partners. And yeah, are there any questions you can answer?
I got a couple questions, but before I do that, I'm going to make a couple of comments. We have active neighborhood associations, and we have this umbrella group called the CIC, Citizen Involvement Committee. I don't know if you're in the position to make presentations to them.
Yeah, we've already scheduled one with them.
Okay.
We have one, I don't remember, I want to say it's in November.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, I don't remember
remember.
exactly. We've been scheduling
It's
a lot
on
of
the
things,
calendar.
but we have been in communication with them, and we do have a
Very good.
date on to present to them, so.
We have a major restoration activity going on at the Environmental Learning Center at the Clackamas Community College. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not.
No.
Jerry, you might want to say something about it, but it's the headwaters of Mill Creek Canyon, and so they just had their 50th anniversary, and rather than do something like a tower or something else to recognize it, they've gone into a restoration program on this. And if I could just take a moment and have Jerry speak to that. Sure.
Well, the center is 40 years old this year, and the college is 50. But it's really interesting. And when I came in, I talked to one of you about, we were the first site in this region for the National Wildlife Federation Backyard Wildlife Habitat Program. And then I developed a class with some other people, but we had it state certified, called Environmental Landscaping, through the Hort Department, which is a real challenge to introduce a class like that to a trade or organized kind of a landscape field. Anyway, that class was held for 15 years. And every time we had probably 30 some students, and the requirement was you would take your project idea and then have it certified under the National Wildlife Federation program, which you've done even more than what they're doing, which is really good. And then in order to get a grade, I was the one that led that class. You had to have a finished plan. You had to go through the steps of developing a landscape plan and then having it certified by the National Wildlife Federation. And the only thing different that they did that you're not doing is they asked you, then would you allow us to send out a news release from the National Wildlife Federation from Washington, D.C. about John Block's landscape in Oregon City, as an example, which was a shock because, National Wildlife Federation is talking about this man's landscape. And that was kind of neat, but it was a wonderful thing. Anyway, the ELC, Environmental Learning Center, one of our 2 logos was the National Wildlife Federation logo because we felt so strongly, like you're doing, that the way to get habitat in urban areas is to get people empowered to do it. So I really commend you for what you're doing.
What I was going to suggest, just taking a moment, I think they're trying to reinvigorate this program.
Yeah.
And I can give you the name and email address, but it may be a great mechanism for you to work through, and I'm sure they would be very interested in the kind of support you might give, but it's also, it is a community college for the whole of Clackamas County, so the person that is temporarily working there was a former director of the horticultural program, and I can go ahead and email her email address, but I think it'd be a great contact.
Wonderful.
That's a great idea. One of the things that we do when we can is offer or is certify demonstration sites. And so if there are already sites that are living by these standards or could easily get there, that are sites that communities could access, they might make really great demonstration sites.
I have the list of all the people that had their projects certified.
Cool.
So I could help with that.
That would be great.
That'd be fun, garden tour, through all those. Just saying.
Garden tours are always a hit.
What's your position on bird feeders?
The general Audubon position on bird feeders is that they're a really great way for people to appreciate the birds that are in their yard because they provide a focal point where the bird stops.
Just a couple questions.
So, but we always say the better way to provide for birds is to create
The
habitat.
hummingbird sticks around through the winters. Is that because they're bird feeders?
No, the Anna's hummingbird is a resident bird throughout the year.
Through the winter?
So you don't see the rufous throughout the winter, but you still
Right.
see the Annas,
And-
and that's normal.
And that predates bird feeders?
Yeah, it does.
So what do they feed on in the wintertime?
Well, interestingly, people think that hummingbirds live off of their feeders. They really live off of insects. The feeder is just like
Yeah.
a cool, sweet thing that they're taking advantage of. And they eat like 90% insects for protein.
Yeah.
So in the wintertime, I don't know where the heck they find insects. I guess they find small amounts. I think probably the sugar water does help sustain them during really tough days in the winter, but they would have found resources without that.
The other thing, and I do live in the city, but we had in my part of the city a major infestation of the dusky footed wood rat in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't bother with them because they didn't get into the house and they are a native. Do you know of any reason that happened?
No, sorry. I don't.
What
You
happened?
attract wood rats.
I mean, probably a lack
Dusky-
of predators,
Yeah,
I
dusky
would
footed
say.
wood rats. That's last summer.
I mean, I think a lot of
Yeah,
the,
scores of them were coming through the neighborhood,
that's
yeah.
crazy.
Scores.
Wildfires.
Lack of predators.
Or
Like a lot of
development.
big predators. It's harder, like we're eliminating the habitat of a lot of bigger predators, but some of those scavenger species can still find their way. So
They were
it's a good
doing
reason
more
to
than
promote
finding their way.
raptors.
I will say at the Portland office, we had a mouse problem last year, and it was from development across the street.
So, any other questions, folks?
So
Comments?
I'm just kind of wondering, if you're going to be moving into our area, we've got several parks that maybe we can do demonstration gardens and encourage.
Nope.
Maybe do some pollinating and work with a couple of local nonprofits. Also, if we're looking in people's backyards and doing evaluation, do you guys ever we have a heritage tree program do you encourage people to take a look at their tree, value their tree, certify their trees as a heritage tree if the possibility, and or do you suggest in possibility of lands that can handle tall trees, big ones, because we're losing all of our really tall trees in our cities. We're getting everything medium range, right around the top,
Yeah.
just to
Right.
cover the rooftops. We're not
Yeah.
going up over.
So
And-
one thing, oh, sorry.
I was just hoping that, is there any way we can, as a city, cuddle up to you and say, we have a heritage tree program, let's encourage
Yep.
that, let's encourage saving every tall tree we have, and maybe go into some areas and use this perfect example, Waterboard Park, biggest dump inside of Ivy in all of Portland, and that is a huge trailway for animals to travel from, all the way from our river, all the way over into Canby. You know, it's a little snake that travels through our, or park that wiggles through our city that's choked with ivy. And it's part of our watershed and natural resource area and a park, and
This
Use
focuses
something
on
like
1
that.
acre or less, though.
but I'm just trying to embrace here.
So
I
the
just
two-
can't help myself. Can't help
No, I love that thinking. The two things that I'll quickly say is that one of the reasons that we come down here and talk like this with cities is because we want to learn about those programs that you have, that when our technician is going out into the field and talking to property owners, they should know about these things. So, you know, we want to keep this conversation going and build relationships with staff so that if there's certain programs that you want us to be promoting while we're out there, like heritage tree programs, that we can
Yeah.
do that.
Like, we've got a funny little park up by Electric Street. I don't know if that's a park or not, but it's an empty triangle lot heading up to Rivercrest, and it's
not
a
a
little
park. It's not
seat
a
there.
charter park.
I don't know if it's a park or not.
No, but we don't own it.
Okay, but somebody mows
The
it,
city
darn.
doesn't own
Too bad. I was gonna say that would be the perfect.
I think the city
That's-
probably mows it, but it's not a city
Yeah.
property.
And then the other piece regarding the 1 acre or less and parks is that we do have a lot of examples of demonstration sites, like Susie mentioned, where we'll just delegate a small area of a larger park as a habitat demonstration area
Yeah.
if there's a public benefit to it. So we do make exception to that 1 acre if it's a public land or even like a school or a religious institution that's larger, but they want to do something that's going to be visible and is going to be a good educational tool for the community to see. So yeah, we have a lot of examples of
So
working
when
with
you
cities
come and
on
invade
those.
our little area,
Yeah, Waterboard
how do we make
Park.
sure we're at top of that list to get some of those demonstration gardens in strategic areas?
Yeah, let's keep talking
Yeah.
about it.
Any other comments?
Can you speak to the landscape contractors that you're in training? How do you do that, and where?
We host a training every December for any landscaper that's interested, and we hold it at the Portland Columbia Land Trust office, and
The where?
the Portland Columbia Land Trust office.
Okay.
It's at Morrison and Grand. And it's about I think it's about a 3-hour long class. And we basically go over all the certification criteria. And most of them are already kind of living by these standards or are as much as they can. And so we just put them through the training of like, this is what we would expect of you if someone from the program hired you. These are the certification criteria. This is what they'll be looking for. They're going to be trying to reach one of these levels, silver, gold, or platinum, and you're going to need this information to know how to
Do you
get
have
there.
a way of rewarding them when they complete their instruction with you, such as their own certificate that they can put or sticker on the side of the truck?
They get listed in our directory.
That would really,
That's the reward.
they would respond well to that because it's a very competitive market and people are concerned about, they're more sensitive to environmental
Right.
concerns and other than a bland landscape, something that has, the kind of things you're after, diversity and all that. But
Yeah,
that's
we have, they sign a memorandum of understanding that establishes the relationship between their business and our program. And one of the things in that is that they're allowed to use our logo, so they can use our logo on their website or for publicity and say, we're a backyard habitat
Okay.
certified landscaper. And then we offer publicity, so we put their name on our website and provide it to every person in our program.
It's
But that's
part-
the extent of it.
Yeah, it's part of the resource packet. So this is the resource packet that every program participant gets, and there are tons of coupons in here and lots of information. And one of the things we provide is the list of professional landscapers, so that, like Nikki said, everybody receives that. So it's like, that's pretty good free promotion.
Are there, excuse me,
No, go ahead.
are there particular retail plant nurseries that are better, and are they listed in your packet?
Yeah, that's a great.
Yeah.
We actually just launched a new page on our website that has an interactive map of retail plant nurseries, and it was a pretty cool project. We're in the process of surveying all of them now to make sure that the information that we're providing is accurate and up to date. And our goal is that we wanted to showcase a lot of nurseries and then include information about how many native plants they serve or they sell. One thing that's really important to us regarding pesticides is whether nurseries are selling plants that have been treated with neonicotinoids. And so neonicotinoids are a class of pesticide that is persistent for up to 15 years. It's systemic, so if a plant's been treated with it, it's essentially toxic. And they're
For
very
15
wide.
years? Is there a type of plant that's more likely to retain it for that long?
It's persistent in soil for up to 15 years, and I think that needs to be a lot more research that is done on it, and how long it is in plants probably depends a lot on the growth habit of the plant and how
From one
fast.
application?
Yeah, a soil application, it can be persistent for 15 years, and then continuously taken up by the
Does not
plant.
be very soluble.
Yeah, so a lot of plants that get promoted as being pollinator friendly or, great for wildlife, if they've been treated with neonicotinoids, they're not so great. So that's one of the things that we're trying to track on the map on our website. So it's a pretty cool new tool. We have probably, I'd say 30 local nurseries that are featured on it, and it says how many native plants they sell, whether or not they sell invasive plant species, because a lot of nurseries still sell invasive plant species, whether their plants are treated with neonicotinoids, though most of them it's unknown, because they don't know if the wholesalers that they're getting their plants from have treated with neonicotinoids. But it's just trying to raise awareness about those things and help consumers make good choices.
Okay, I've seen 3 websites, and you keep saying our website. So,
Oh.
there's Grow Smart, Not Hot.
Oh,
That's
that's,
our main Backyard Habitat Program website.
And then there's Backyard
That one.
Habitat.
habitats.org. That's-
Habitats.
Habitats, plural.
Yeah, Habitat was already taken.
I was also going to add, we do have 2 plant sales every year. We have a fall plant sale where it's a pre-order sale, and we use several local nurseries that have really great stock for that. And we also have a spring sale that is out at Echo Valley Nursery. In addition, we have 3 coupons in the resource packet for local nurseries. So we do a lot of promoting of the local native plant nurseries.
When you're making, I'm going to assume you're going to make the contact with the LC. It might be good to get together with their Department of Horticulture too. They grow plants as part of it, and they're for the replanting that's going to happen, the restoration. They're growing a lot of indigenous native plants right now for the revegetation of the project there. So. The other thing I'd like to, Roger here is from the Parks and Recreation Committee, and I'm also on that. If you wouldn't mind, if you would make a presentation to the Parks and Recreation Committee as well.
Sure, yeah, that'd be great. And which one's Roger? Okay, Roger. Okay, thank you, that's great.
I'm sure you're one of the reasons he's here. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised. He's not.
So do you only list the nurseries that don't have the harmful pesticides, or do
We're
you
listing
list the
all of
ones
them,
who
and then it
have
just
the bad
says-
ones and the good ones?
Yeah, we listed a wide range of nurseries. The goal is that we wanted to just provide information and let consumers make their own choices. And most of it's unknown.
Right, yeah.
There's many nurseries that know that they do not sell them. And then there's some nurseries that say that they don't know. And then there's some nurseries that know which of their growers that they buy from do and don't use them, so they can, if asked, help make smart choices. Any nursery that's organic isn't going to use neonics. So it gets tricky. So we're just doing our best to provide the information for people.
Okay,
It's really
thanks.
tricky.
Anything else?
Yeah. One more thing.
Go ahead.
Do you work with the Feral Cat Coalition? All right, because
Yeah.
you get these great gardens, and then 3 houses down are 40 cats.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an issue. So
Cats.
part of the criteria does address cats. And the Audubon Society of Portland, outside of the Backyard Habitat Program, does have a long-standing partnership with the Feral Cat Coalition, because a lot of people are surprised to learn that we actually have the same goals. We want to see cats that live longer, healthier lives safely in people's homes.
In homes.
And the Feral
talking
Cat
feral.
Coalition has that goal because feral cats live pretty dismal lives. They have really short lifespans, and they're subject to a lot of threats. And Audubon, obviously
The birds have to
cares
learn
about
to avoid
wildlife.
predators in the wild. Birds have to learn to avoid predators in the cities.
So we do provide information for folks about how to transition your cat to being indoors. We, I don't know if folks have heard of this Catio tour that Audubon and Feral Cat Coalition puts on every year. We did the 5th annual this year, and we had over 1,200 people come to look at cat patios that people are installing in their homes.
Yeah, I went to collect bottles from a woman, and she has a cat patio
Yeah.
for like 8 cats with
It's a thing.
walkways. It's amazing. It's really
Yeah.
cool.
It's
And that's how she took care of her feral cat.
So it's one of those situations where we do address it in our certification criteria for the Backyard Habitat Program, and then it's addressed separately through this Cat Safe at Home campaign that Portland Audubon and the Feral Cat Coalition work on together. We have a really great partnership with them. We've fundraised enough money through our Catio tours that we're hiring a staff person to manage the campaign this year. So it's,
Providing jobs too.
yeah, providing jobs. Yeah, that's a big issue.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yes,
We appreciate
absolutely.
it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you for having us here. Kelly, maybe we'll leave a stack of these
Please.
for you? Okay, great. And
Leave some for the
Get on our
committee,
wait
the rest
list.
can go.
yeah, and
Sign
Kelly
up.
has our email address, so if anybody wanted to contact us about giving a presentation or connecting us with someone that you think is interested, I don't want to put a burden on you, but would you be able to share that with the committee?
Could
Okay,
you-
that'd be great.
Could you send out an email to us all with their email copied so we can get it directly?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you. Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Next agenda item.
Okay. Okay, we got a couple of public comments, so I'll take Rick Winterhalter first.
Rick?
Very good. That light on? Testing, testing.
Thank you.
Guess we're ready. Mr. Chair, committee members, thank you. Rick Winterhalter, live at 1215 8th Street here in the McLaughlin neighborhood. And I kind of want to talk to you tonight about some, maybe some future deeper discussions about how the tree ordinance, street tree ordinance in the city is applied. I'm motivated a little selfishly by what I perceive to be some inequities of the application of the ordinance, and then also by a desire to see, these trees, the street trees, grow and be healthy, and so we can have a good canopy. And so a little bit just so in the case of the McLaughlin neighborhood, very different than a new development, say on South End, where everybody has 2 trees in their yard and everybody then is required to take care of it. In a neighborhood like McLaughlin or Rivercrest, or, it's not the only one, but that's not necessarily the case. You may have a tree, you may not have a tree, you may fill that strip with concrete, you may fill it with something else, or you don't have to have a tree. But then the person who has a tree in front of their house is required to take care of it. And in some cases, that can be burdensome. In my case in particular, I have one of those nice tall trees, and as Ms. Brochette can attest to. And so, I'm looking right now at somewhere between $5,000 and about $12,000 to manage those trees. So that's a bigger discussion, but that's what's going on now. And I think as I look around the neighborhood, and I've been involved in volunteer planting of the street trees when the neighbors have gone out and do that. And then unfortunately, we're asking people who have no training at all to prune and take care of these trees, and here are these nice little young trees that need some, in those years when they really need some good care and good pruning, they're getting butchered because we've asked our neighbors to take care of the trees and they have no training. So, I'm hoping that this is something that we can all talk about in the future. And, some of the things I think of, I look at, the Tree City USA, that program, requires a $2 per capita investment in street trees. And I think you can, I'd like to see that become, some money set aside specifically for the homeowner care of trees, not necessarily for maintaining park trees or the work that the city does on trees and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where I am, and I'm hoping it's an issue that you feel worthy to talk about here. And I have approached our steering committee in the neighborhood association as well, and so it may rise up with them as well to talk about. And so that's just kind of why I'm here.
We've expressed a lot of interest, and of course, it would have to be in the next biennium, but a lot of interest in actually having the city have an arborist.
Yeah.
And
So many things that
and
we
so
could do.
it's something that's come up with our discussions too.
Good. Good. So if we could, I don't know what the agenda looks like in the future, Mr. Chair, but, you know, if you could look here in the next meeting or so, and we can take some I've got several slides and pictures, kind of give some examples and just kind of start the discussion.
Happy to
That'd be
schedule-
great.
Be happy to schedule you in.
Okay.
How many trees are you talking about that,
2.
and they're gonna cost you 5,000 to 12,000 to prune?
Safety prune, so I do have permission from the city to take both of them down. But this is a long-standing thing. I've been there for 26 years, so, you know, originally I had permission to take them down. It was only gonna cost $500 to take one of them down. But I've safety pruned the largest one, the little one, little, it's, you know, it's big around. You know, the little one is, you know, the arborist just said, yeah, it needs to come down. It's a leaner and all that. But anyway, it's $2,500 to take down. It was, and then the large ones, 10 to take down and 25 to safety prune. And so you know, so if I want to leave it, and there, you know, other issues with those trees. So, you know, it's an expensive process. And, you know, when you look around the neighborhood, there aren't many of those. You know, so, you know, the benefits that we get from the trees, and all of a sudden start doing a net present value, and it's like, yeah, well. So it's.
And I
it's
can't
interesting.
address the fact that one of his trees is leaning precariously over the road, and it got worse last winter. We were out there in the snow going, oh geez. So, you know, there's a potential danger there of it falling on the house across the street, so.
Yeah, and the city has provided me the, you know, permission to do that and that sort of thing. It just seems like it's a big one. Anyway, so I think there are some things that, and I'm glad to hear that you guys have been talking about, because I think there's some things that we can do to.
So what would help you most at this point? Most at this point, what would help you?
What would help me most
Yeah.
is help offsetting the cost. That would, I mean, you know, selfishly, that's for me, but I mean, I'm
Do you know
also
what that
looking
would
at the
be? Just-
bigger issue.
Do you know what that'd be? Just try to get a feeling for it.
What it would be, you know, it's going to cost me $5,000 to take the one tree down and safety prune, or if I take them both down, then it's going to cost, and this is just the arborist cost, you know, it's going to cost 12.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy
Yeah.
what it is. All right, thank
The
you
real
very
dilemma.
much. And thank you all for volunteering. Really appreciate it.
Before you leave, Rick has worked in solid waste and recycling for much of his career, an expert in the field. I'd love to see a presentation on the state of the situation with markets and just generally how recycling's going. It's something that I think we as a committee should be aware of. It's a real crossroads, I understand right now, right? If you'd be willing to do that.
Were the agenda item, I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Paul Edgar. I'm going to limit you somewhat on the time. We've got your letter here, and if you, rather than going through it, highlight.
I would like to focus in on page 2 of this letter, and it's about right at the, on Ganong Street and 4th Avenue. On Ganong Street and 4th Avenue.
This is
there's
number 9,
an
right?
There is, yeah, my light's on. There's unimproved right-of-way. Ganong Street going up between 4th and 5th is at about 35% grade. And it's too steep for the city to put a street on it, but it's right-of-way owned by the city. And my house is perched right up on 5th Avenue, and right below my front porch, there's a great big rock, probably in the 2 to 3 ton bracket, partially exposed from when a landslide occurred. This is a house that was my wife's great-grandmother's. We're the people in it now. They want to dig away at the toe of the landslide hill. That's 35%. I know a little bit about geology, and I know that that's a precarious type of thing to be done. And if this rock breaks loose, it will go down through a house at 302 Third Avenue. It'll go probably through Terry B's house on McLaughlin. It'll probably end up in the river. And it's on its path going down through there. If there's cars or people or houses or whatever it is, nothing's going to stop it. Somebody's going to die. And all I look at it and say, okay, we're asking, a builder is asking to improve a driveway that allows him to cut up into there. But the property is city's. It's not the guy that owns the house who's trying to build a house. It's the city property. So how do we indemnify? This is the big question. How do we indemnify when, if they're granted to cut away a toe of a landslide? And now then all of a sudden, through the jiggling and cutting and trying to put retaining walls and stuff like this, that we have a shaker. My big rock now is unstable. It comes down the hill. Who's at fault? So I asked the city attorney briefly about it, and he says, well, we asked the people to sign a waiver so that the city is not held at fault for anything. Okay? So then the next question comes up is, who's at fault if they can't get landslide insurance? Well, folks, there is no landslide insurance. So they can't get any insurance on it. So the city attorney says, well, the person that you could really maybe attach to is the geotech firm that did the geotech studies. They have to have bonding and other insurances as part of their licensing. But the real question is this could kill somebody. And how do we, and it's on public property, and so I'm concerned, yes, about what he does on his own property because I own the lots right above it. But when he has property rights there, and that's kind of personal property rights. Now we move into protecting a slope that Dogami, State Department of Geology, has done X-ray, LIDAR, and they show that the whole hillside is full of landslides. We know it. I don't think Dogami's going to lie to us. So now, all of a sudden, we are in this position of saying, okay, what do we do? How do we protect? I don't think my house is the one that's going to get the most damage. I'm up high. It's like stuff flows downhill. It's the people below me that are really in double jeopardy. And so as a part of the Friends of Kenema, I'm talking about how do I protect my neighbors? How do I protect their property? What are the codes and the rules, and what should we be doing? And I felt like that this is going to go actually, some of these things, I'm appealing a couple things to the city commission, and I will. Because I think that somewhere along the line, it has to be up in the air where we really get a good view of it. But this is dangerous. And this is a known landslide hill cutting away right at the toe of a landslide that Dogami has already identified the whole hillside, and it's over 35%. So what do we do? And that's what I'm concerned about.
I think, if I vaguely remember, Pete talked about once you start getting above a certain percentage in slope, a lot of other restrictions start applying. And like I said, once you, like, I know, especially in forestry, if we start doing anything on anything over like 40% slopes, we have to get a geotech report and do all kinds of stuff to verify that what we're doing is not right. And I think, I remember Pete saying something, I don't remember the specifics about it, but I think there are some protections in place that will start coming into place once you start applying to work on something that steep. So.
The city code starts talking at 15% or 20%. So you start to get into these things. But now, this is where we have a known landslide that existed because Grandma saw it. It happened when she lived in our house. And Grandma told me, don't play with that hillside below the house. When we bought it from her. And all I'm concerned about is the code that Oregon City has I don't know that it addresses it in an adequate manner. And I wish that you guys would take a good, serious look at what the codes are, and go through it and review it, because I would feel a lot better if some of these rulings actually came through the Natural Resources Committee in a public hearing, where some of this came out and everyone had a good chance to look at it and think about it. But I think you need to take a serious look at this stuff, because this is on public property, and this is not where he has the rights to identify it. And so I'm asking you guys to say,
Well, my question is, where is it in the process?
it is right now being reviewed in planning,
Which is the place to start.
okay? And
I presume this is the type 1.
no, I think it's a type 2.
Yeah, I'm not familiar, I'm not all that familiar with the application, but it gets submitted to planning, and then the actual review of that occurs through the Development Services Department, which is part of Public Works. And so the city engineer oversees that, and that's probably what's happening right now if it's been submitted and it's a complete application.
But these are my comments, full comments that I submitted to the city in this, in asking questions and review. And I felt like it was important that I bring them to you guys so that you guys could have a chance to take a look at them. And if any of you, I'm an IT guy retired. I am not a geotech expert. And all I can turn around and tell you is that I would love to have more people helping, thinking. I'd like, we're trying to save lives.
Have you talked to a geologist?
Oh, I've talked to Dr. Burns, and he goes, rah, Paul, keep going,
Well, it's critical when you take this out to actually bring him aboard. I mean, when we had the before we had the steep slopes ordinances and the buildings went along Newell Creek Canyon, their geotech was saying, no, there's no problem here.
Yeah.
And the city had hired a geologist and said, yes, there is, and advised against one of the developments to occur, but the city commission overruled that decision. So it's important to, in fact, I think, have that kind of expertise to address
and
that.
Dr. Burns was and the students from Portland State's Department of Geology were the ones.
Now, which Dr. Burns are we talking about?
That was not Bill Burns, it's,
Scott? Scott Burns.
Scott Burns.
Yeah.
Scott Burns. Bill Burns is PhD at Dogami.
Yeah.
And, but Scott I talk to him regularly via email.
I think what's critical is when you make your presentation to have him address the issue specifically.
We need to have, this needs to be, I believe,
Elevated.
elevated up, thank you, to where we can get it up there and really take a look at it, because Scott Burns keeps on telling us in every one of his lectures that we're on the cusp of the big one. And when we're in areas like we have in Kenema, where the whole hillside is reflected in LiDAR as a major landslide, both deep and shallow. And we have all of this naturally occurring water, and that's just beautiful for Greece and to these landslides. And I would just like to have you guys take a look more at it, review it, because I don't want to have a case like Newell Creek Canyon.
Yeah. Would you show us? Would you
Oh,
be-
I would love to show
For
you
those that
people,
want to.
you can take a look at it. Anybody that wants to come into, I'd love to give you a natural resources overlay look at Kenema, because it's the most beautiful place that we should be protecting with all of the water and springs and wetlands everything all over. It is just a place where, and as part of my passion of life is that I'm very green at the edges.
Well, you mentioned the Friends of Kaniba. What's the position of the neighborhood association?
They eliminated land use committee completely out of the neighborhood association. So they don't have a standing land use committee anymore. And anyway, it's just now that those of us caring about land use.
Well, the point is that they still can render opinions.
Yes.
And
But the steering committee is controlled by the people who don't want a land use.
well, if you're talking about the Boulder specifically, I would say that there would probably be interest in it. And so,
Well, I would hope that somebody gets
and you may
smarter.
not be able to make the presentation for personal reasons, but if you've got a friends group, there might be somebody in it that could.
Yes, I know that there are others there that would like to, but we'd just like to, this is saving the environment, protecting the water, the trees, everything is there. Our little wagon roads. It's worth a lot of people. I personally wrote two grant applications.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold you off on that discussion, but we're dealing with this specific issue. And
Yeah.
I think you need to, I think one way or another, be it you or one of the other persons in the Friends, need to put this forward to the neighborhood association as well.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about the road again? You said it's the city road, unimproved, that they're giving an easement for the builder to improve, and
They're built, it's
And-
basically an easement into an unimproved right-of-way to build, which is in this steep slope, and they cut right into the bank, and to try to create a 6 or 8% grade driveway that goes up into a lot. And if you take a look at the renderings that they have and they're asking to do, it goes about 40 feet up into the slot. And and when you cut in there to cut, you're gonna have to cut and have steep walls. And let's say that the footing of the wall is gonna have to be at least 2 or 3 feet in the ground too. And that's holding up maybe 10 feet of hillside.
and that'll be on city property.
And that's all on city property.
Ground being loosely defined.
Yeah.
And I kind of worry about us giving up our easements in our city roads. I mean, if we have if that's a city area.
Well, it sounds like it's in application at this point in time.
Yeah,
Actually, it has not.
The city is not making a decision on it. That's an application.
Yeah, all right. I just, sometimes see our roads
There's some very.
that become
very,
people's yards that they're not paying taxes on. And, and then all of a sudden that area, you can't park on it, it's city property, but it's in an easement. You can't go on there. You have to discuss it with the property owner. Just saying
Yeah.
that if that is,
The alternative that they could do is ask for a vacation of that area, and then the city will lose more control of it.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Because those easements originally belonged to a property owner.
Well, Kanema was platted in 1865, flat platted. Not any considerations of the hills and dales and
Yes.
anything. So we are living on an 1865 legal document.
And I understand that, and if the big one comes, it may have effect for the whole neighborhood anyway, so, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. What you mentioned, Paul, the whole committee, Freshwater News is a publication that goes from Seattle all the way through Oregon. Very high glossy, beautiful publication about boating, and Kanema is a feature, the front page feature, half that document on the front page, old historic pictures on the inside, and it tells a beautiful story I don't think I've ever been told. I never expected to hear about Kanema, Oregon City in Freshwater News, but they feature it as a port city. This
Well,
issue.
it means Kanema and Chinook Wawa. Canoe.
Canoe place.
Sorry.
canoe.
yeah.
But if anybody wants it, I have the national nomination document where Kanema was nominated for National Register status. And this means that the whole landscape, not just the buildings, the whole landscape is considered, that's in the boundary, National Register Historic Places status. So this means the streets, the trees, everything within Kenema has National Register Historic Places status. And so we should be good stewards of something that the federal government has dedicated for that status. And I hope that everybody steps up to the plate in that regard.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Back to my agenda here where I hit it. We don't have, we have the old business, continued discussion incentives for the Heritage Tree Program. I think without, I mean, we could have some discussions, but without Pete here, I don't know if we want to do that or not.
Pete briefed me on the item a little bit, and I can provide a quick summary if you'd like.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got some comments related to this earlier gentleman's comments and the Heritage Tree Program, so let's talk about it.
But go ahead and make your presentation then.
Okay. So Pete informed me that this committee wanted to investigate incentives for people to participate in the Heritage Tree Program. And one of the barriers, it sounds like, to participation is the fact that to apply for designation as a heritage tree, you have to provide an arborist report, which can be expensive and, you know, would maybe deter some people from moving forward with that. And the possible solutions or options that were discussed were using existing city resources. The Parks Department has agreed to one arborist report essentially per year for trees on parks property. So if they're nominated, then the Parks Department is willing to at least do one per year. Grants, seeking grant funding is an option. Pete has not found any options yet for that, but there could be grants out there. Assistance from the Clackamas Community College, and it sounds like we did reach out to them, and their program is just started. The faculty apparently are working 80 hours a week these days just to get that program up and running. And so it's a little bit early for us to ask for assistance there, but it's a potential in the future once that program is established. One of the constraints on that, though, is that the students are, they won't be certified as arborists. Mm-hmm. And so the onus would still be on the faculty to kind of do anything official for us, and that the students can only help with, they don't want to compete with the private sector. So they would take on projects that involve nonprofit or public lands, but not privately owned lands. So there are some constraints around working with the community college. And then the last option was to investigate whether, you know, we'd want to revise our code to remove the requirement for the arborist report. And you know, what Pete explained was that that's not really recommended by staff. One, because you need an objective professional assessment so that a homeowner or property owner can make an informed decision about whether or not to actually designate that tree. You know, want to make sure it's healthy, and then of course consider the maintenance costs, future maintenance costs of a tree before they, you know, officially designate it. So it's good practice to really have an arborist look at it, get a professional opinion, and so that option is available and could, you know, be pursued and would have to go through a code amendment, but it's not recommended at this time. And so those are the options that he gave to me. Of course, you know, there's still potential grant funding that could be sought, and there might be other city resources besides parks. but none that have been identified.
Question?
Yeah, it was the parks volunteered to supply an arborist for one tree.
On Parks property. One tree on Parks property.
Okay. I am wondering if it's possible, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, whether or not there could be a set aside from the Metro Enhancement grants. How you would write a grant proposal for a project which may or may not occur within that granting period is a question, but if it doesn't occur, of course, those monies go back into it goes in the pot of the granting committee. They had a lot of money left over from this last grant cycle, quite a bit. And so it might be, it might be something to explore, and probably the best person to explore it with is Councilor Carlotta Collette first. She's the Metro representative and to see if there are any internal restrictions from Metro itself that would preclude that from happening. If not, then it may well be that the board itself could make a decision of whether they would want to participate in a matching grant project or something of that nature.
Yeah, Carlotta is also Oregon City's representative.
Yes, right.
Yeah. I think, well, at least the way you stated the community college position was, it sounded like they weren't ready or to do us a favor yet, but it's not just a favor to us. I mean, it would be a favor to their students.
Yes.
As a senior project kind of thing, man. Certainly, there must be a way to develop a template. I could see making it a way easier process for, like, the city parks arborists to check off instead of having to do the entire report or whatever. I don't know. I would, well, if I was a student, I think I would jump on a project like that.
And one sensitivity they have, they can have their own sales of the material on their grounds, but they would not want to compete.
Oh, that's right, that competition.
But it's also a lot of the people that are in the professional positions were their former students. And so they would want to make sure they're not competing with some students that they actually produced out of their program. But to me, I think you're right. I think there should be some kind of mechanism, but I think they are pretty well tied up through this planning season.
How many professional arborists want to mess around with a heritage tree certification when they've got $10,000 to cut down a tree? How many?
Yep.
I mean, they would have to do how many?
Right.
So, I mean, I don't see it's a big competition thing, but whatever. It's early in the process, and I think that there's still a lot of opportunity. My comment, both about street trees and heritage tree, is it's never going to be widely accepted and something people want to do without some kind of help or incentive. Maybe it's just my poor understanding of the Heritage Tree Program, but it would almost be like a punishment to designate your tree. You're tying up your property. It's almost like a conservation easement.
Oh, yeah, it's basically a covenant against your deed that says you can't
Right,
remove
and
the tree without proper reporting and all that.
And I should add that the community college was interested, definitely, but just wanted to let us know that they're a little bit,
Yeah.
it's a little early to have them do anything, but they're definitely interested in working with the city and with the NRC.
Yeah, it's definitely probably more of a collaborative effort in the
Yeah.
next couple of years to
Yeah.
see what could be planned and done versus a, let's just do it now type
Right.
thing.
Now, you said, Kelly, that there were 3 opportunities here that Pete was recommending, as I heard you. One of them also was adjust the standards. I don't even know what the standards are to the code. I don't think we've ever seen them, this committee. We saw what the code had in terms of what defined a heritage tree. Then we expanded it to include groves or assemblages, which I think was a wise thing. How could we look at the standards?
They're on the web.
Yeah, they're part of the municipal code.
Yeah,
I believe
we
there's
might have
a,
looked at them once. I think you might have been gone one of the
But
meetings.
I'm talking about standards for arborists. Is that that's the standard he's talking about?
it's, I think it's the application requirements for, nominating
Oh,
a
okay.
heritage tree.
Okay, I
So
do know.
with the nomination, you need a list of things, and one of those things is an arborist
All right.
report.
But are there standards the city sets for arborists? Or is just the term arborist either by the 2 certifying groups?
It
good enough?
doesn't, I don't think we say specifically
I
arborist
thought he
report.
said it was the whatever National Arborist
Yeah,
Association.
there's,
or something.
it's
major
stated
Yeah,
in there.
yeah, as long as they were accredited by
It's
them,
not
it
just a
was-
guy with a
yeah,
pickup and a chainsaw.
Would like the one in Marlboro.
Well, I remember going through something, Doug remembers this real well, where the arborist report talked about
Jam on
falling
that,
limbs may
yeah.
injure beavers, and trees are decrepit, and that got my attention real quick. And I called that arborist, and he told me who he was and so forth. And anyway, long and short of it is, I still feel like if a living organism called a tree, which has values in good health and also has values in decay to wildlife values, that's the part that I think I'd like to see us never forget.
Well, if you're gonna have a heritage tree, you're gonna wanna make sure it doesn't decay. I mean,
But if it
that's
has-
not, I mean, that's
correct.
The heritage tree is a different thing than
Right.
our
But it
regular
has
tree.
cavities in it that are not affecting its stability, and it's providing other wildlife values, or the assemblages. We've fought that battle for a while too. So, okay, all right, so his comments, Pete, was that adjusting standards to the code that we all worked on is not probably valuable. I see that. However, we could look at the standards of what an arborist goes through. That's what I'd like to do
Well,
at some point.
are we the people to do that?
I don't know. Could we have the arboricultural instructor, I know who it is, up there, come down and just tell us a little bit about their program, what they train in? That'd be neat.
But
Yeah, Rodney Walters.
why? I'm sorry, I'm not
Why?
with you on that.
Why? Because the training tells you what what the output is gonna be.
I guess that the thing is, I think we would go for a certification of an arborist as opposed to coming up with our own standards. I think we'd be in
Right.
trouble.
No, I didn't say come up with their own standards. I'm just wondering if they're inclusive.
What are the certification standards is what you're saying?
Yeah. And what
If
are
an
they?
arborist is certified, how did he get or how did
Yeah.
they get certified, and what were the requirements?
Right. Yeah,
What is their qualifications to
there you go.
write,
That sounds good.
to make a judgment on whether a tree should come down or not, and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, one of the things that seems to me could be explored at the community college is to actually perhaps have the students work with a certified arborist. And one of the conditions is for any arborist to be willing to work with the community college, to have students work with them and not have the prohibitive expense that's generally associated with it.
Yeah.
There'll probably be benefits to the person in question to do so, but, so maybe that's something that could be worked out actually with the community college. Yes, Steve?
The first graduating class will happen in 18 months. Rodney Walters has started. It takes 18 months for the first graduating class. I read that email, and of course, I read the email with a great green light going, oh, this is a wonderful thing. Meaning that yes, maybe his first graduating class will not be experienced enough, but together they can use us as a way to put together their reports together, so they'll know how to make reports. And since they are interested in being involved in this, but they cannot lead the efforts at this time because it might interfere with the private sector, but they were certainly happy to jump on city properties, nonprofit properties, that maybe we could say, let's take this first graduating class, let's go to our Mount View Cemetery, and let's do that group together. We as a committee, some of us might want to say, we're timber people. There's plenty of people on this board, me being the least experienced. I'm just the loudest mouth. Who's not afraid to say the dumb stuff, because some of my stuff does not have, I don't know where it could. I'm saying is that if we say, okay, great, let's take on your one beautiful project with you for your first graduating class. The next graduating class, he is an arborist. He's teaching new arborists. Those new arborists, the next class we might be able to say, we can throw down a scholarship if each one of you do a report on one tree each. Each art, they could maybe get an incentive in their educational things. That's gives them a bit of a resume for their private sector that they're going out into the world with. They've worked with a committee in the city, and yeah, we can work on our street trees, our nonprofits, and our own parks. We can bite that bullet first because that's the one we can't bite. And that's a park. And it's a cemetery, and it's a nonprofit, and that's where our Parks Department sits. And I think a lot of the work might be already done. And if we're gonna at least grab one, that might be a great project to grab. I'm just throwing that up as an example. We have other spots.
I think that's what Pete's response.
Yeah, and I mean, I read the email too, and I wrote him back and I said, I think that's an awesome thing. Rodney's, my point saying, yeah, sure, we just have to start small.
Well, I think that's what the response I understood is.
And if it's one tree, but but there might be a tree, and then the rest of us can start gathering up information and say, well, maybe we can expand this into several of these trees on that road, on that piece of property or that park. But to get another either grove trees on our public lands, our city lands, we need to, every chance we get, stick up a sign that says heritage tree. We don't have enough of those. And maybe we could also encourage buildings that already have protections on their trees, but just to fill out the last remaining forms, like the hotel that's coming in. They have a heritage tree on their property, knowing it's already protected, but all the arborist and reports are all done. All it is the form being filled out. Maybe we could say, you might have a bit of an obligation to fill out that form, just as being a good citizen. You already have to take care of the property, you already have to do that, but it gets us another tree on our list. It puts us that much closer to rewarding ourselves for being a U.S. city of trees.
Yeah.
Because we're missing some of those opportunities that they make them do the arborist reports, and they're there. And anyway, all right.
I think it's really important for us to maintain a relationship with the arboriculture program because we got Tree City USA designation. We've got a campus that's doing that instruction, and to know more about what they do, in my opinion, is really an important thing.
And just the grove on the college grounds.
Yeah.
The oak grove on the college
Or
grounds.
the Oregon White Ace, well.
Yeah,
Yep, any of them. Yep, you're right.
that's right next to them.
Yep.
Just saying.
I took notes, I will share them with Pete, and of course, we're on video, so. Yes, I'll share these and then maybe he can bring that back. But it sounds to me that there are a few maybe follow-up items that people could feel free to do. It sounds like you have identified some sites where we already have trees that are protected through land use and have arborist reports, and all you would need to do is identify those locations and contact the property owners.
And we have some city streets that we can just do some of our own trees right along there.
Yeah.
And groves.
Yeah. And groves.
If we do that, then we can go to neighborhoods and talk to them.
The library.
But we have to have some of our own.
Those elm trees.
They won't touch those elm trees. They're sick. They're the ones I started.
Did they use the wood? They used the wood in the library.
Did they the ones they cut down?
Yeah, they used it with the library.
Cool. Well, the ones that are still there are heritage tree quality, I think.
Yes, I
They
think so.
certainly are.
They're huge.
Yeah. Anything, communications? We'll start with Nancy. Anything that you would like to share?
Not right now, no.
Mr. Chair,
Dee Dee?
I think
Oregon City Parks
I'm
Foundation
sorry.
is having
Was I
a
skipping
skipped
something?
in a
Pints night at the
Oh,
Oregon City
excuse me,
Brewery.
review the work plan.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
And you also forgot new business. No?
That's what she's sitting me on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Pete printed copies of the work plan for discussion. And so
Oh, interesting.
he just wanted to make sure that if anyone had comments on it, that we could get those out, and then I can relay those comments to him.
Okay.
All right. What's our task here?
If you had any, so this was sent out over email.
Okay.
As well, and I think it's just for informal comment, not any board action or committee action, but just if you had any comments that you wanted to share on the work plan itself, to make those heard.
My suggestion is that we go over them before the next meeting and make comments accordingly.
Yep.
Rather,
Try to do it now.
rather than try to do it now.
I'd agree with that.
I think almost all of us were involved. Matt, I don't know if you were there at the time, but most of us were involved in setting these up. So let's go ahead and put this for an agenda item. I will have a comment on one of these in our communications. So that's okay with everybody?
Sounds
I think
good.
so, yep.
Yeah, okay.
Sounds wonderful.
With future agenda items?
I would sure like to see us invite Rick Winterhalter back to give an update on recycling. My title that I came up with in my mind was Resource Conservation Strategies, what's working and what isn't in recycling. Because he talked to me earlier, there's a major collapse of markets going on, which I was aware of, but it's going to affect a lot of things, whether we even do certain things anymore. So, and he's a good presenter, he's an educator, like to do that.
Just to extend this discussion of the arborist question a bit more.
Good.
I was thinking it might be possible to bring on the person that's heading up the arborist
Yes.
the program at Clackamas Community College. I would suggest it not be in the form of one of our regular meetings. It may be more in the form of a work session.
Okay.
So we can continue this dialogue
Sure.
further, if that's okay with everybody.
Sounds excellent.
Okay.
Very good.
Anything else for a future agenda item?
Yeah, I think I saw it in one of the previous planning commission meetings, I think it was this week, information about the development, Metro's development of some land by 213 off of Malala Avenue.
Mule Creek Canyon.
Yeah,
The paths?
yeah.
Can we have a presentation by Metro?
Have we had an update on that at all? Or has the committee been updated on that in the last,
Not since you,
since I've joined?
No.
Because that was, yeah, news to me when I saw some of that.
Yeah, it's been an ongoing planning process,
Okay.
actually, and involved a lot of community input.
It's currently be out for public comment, so that by the time you meet next, that will probably be closed. So if you want to provide your own personal public comments to submit for that, I would suggest going to the website and looking at the materials there, and then you can submit the comments to Pete or myself.
If
Could
we
you
could have,
repeat-
if we could have somebody like Brian Bond or somebody coming to speak to us, even though it may be through the process by that time, to actually have a description of the project.
Okay, we can request that.
Okay?
And could you or Pete send, like, all of us a link to the website? Because right now I'm swamped enough that if I have to go find a website, it's not going to happen. But if I have a link and I click on it and I go to it,
Absolutely.
it'll happen.
Yes.
That way I could review it, because they haven't discussed this since I've been here either, so it's been a while.
Oh, it's, the Oregon City website's pretty complete.
I have a hard time finding stuff on it,
Do you?
because I go in looking for things and I end up going,
You don't know where to click.
I don't know where to click.
Yeah.
It is not intuitive to me at all,
It is.
which is a comment on our website, I think. But Linfield College has the same problem. I can't figure out our college's website either. So,
Oh, yeah. Some of the worst I've ever seen are university websites.
I've gotten to where I just Google the department I want to go to, and otherwise I can't find it.
Is there anything else that people want to get onto a future agenda item? Okay, and then let's go into communications. And as I said, Nancy?
I still don't have any.
Okay, nothing came out? Edie?
I don't know what I've done since I've seen you all. Oregon City Parks Foundation has done several cleanings and mulching along Promenade Park in front of the VFW. Oregon City Brewery is going to have a Tuesday night Pints Night this next Tuesday. Please, everyone come.
For whom?
Oh, for Oregon City Parks Foundation, sorry.
Okay, that's a
Yeah,
good,
because I'm sorry.
It's her birthday.
And Portland is just starting a urban tree program, which I signed up for, and because of time constraints, I had to give it up. And that is a really cool program of teaching people how to spot canopies, what you need, how to prune, and I'll bring that information in case we can instill something like that here. I'll bring out the layout to it.
So it's this Tuesday is the,
Yeah, what time?
It's Tuesday.
it's
5?
okay.
If you're retired, you can start it.
Do you want to deal with the letter now, or?
Yeah, it was, yeah, we should, this would be a good time to deal with the letter. Jerry has drafted this one under my name. If we do it, I'd rather do it on behalf of I gotta sign it, but on behalf of the Natural Resource Committee. If everybody could take a glance at this. But Jerry has mentioned this before, and I don't see any reason for not going ahead and putting this forward.
Explain what it is, or you want to just read it?
Yeah, go ahead and explain it.
Okay, with Waterward Park, Roger is the acting chairman of the Parks Foundation, Dee Dee's a member, I'm a board member. Anyway, Waterward Park finally is getting some momentum. We're not talking about the plateau development of public works, we're talking about the hillside. And what we were asking for a letter of support to go to people like Department of Geology and Mineral Industries for a specific consideration for a title called Significant Natural Area or Significant Geologic Area. That designation occurs just in a few places in Oregon right now, and Waterworth Park has got it all. You want to see geology in action, it's there.
Okay.
And then the vegetation scheme's pretty good too. So this letter is directed to Dr. Scott Burns from PSU, and then also to the Department of Geology and Mineral Industries, and that's a different Burns. So with a request that they both consider working with us in the city, this committee, Parks Foundation, to see that status conveyed over time to that area. That's the request the letter makes. Simple as that. Now, Brian was going to write that letter, and he did not get to it, but I did it and ran it by him. So that's what is in front of us. So it's a draft, can be changed however you would like.
It's fine. Do it. Send it.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion. Doesn't have to be anything that we have to wordsmith.
All right. Okay. All right.
Okay, yeah.
That works for me.
We can do it, do it in the, for the Natural Resource Committee. Scott Burns teaches one term a year still, and he's extremely, He's the chair of several, a major international geology and engineering. So he has a lot of activities. He is emeritus, but I should be able to find out through Portland State. I believe I have his email.
Good.
Okay, so I'll check.
Okay.
I have his email address. At Portland's. I have his email address.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do too. Or at least if it's hers, I still
It still is. If you're an emeritus, you keep your email.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah, I've got it too. Yeah, we can proceed with that.
Okay, then I have just a couple other things here real quick. I felt it was time for the Business Alliance. I'm a member of the Business Alliance. I like what they do. They really get busy on projects. Oregon City Business Alliance is about 50-some people strong. They pay about $150 each to be a member, and they advocate for the city's processes and efforts. And I went to them, since I'm a member here, with a concern about a couple things. One, we got a big riverside area that a lot of it's being planned very intensively from basically the mill site clear up to the falls. But then you got from the Arch Bridge down to the Clackamas River confluence, and then up the Clackamas to Clackamas Cove, which hasn't had a real detailed look. There's a waterfront master plan, which is quite outdated, the city has, but one way or the other, I asked them, would you be willing to support a standing committee within the Oregon City Business Alliance that would head up by myself and Don Slack and Nick Dirkman, they're all members, to review and advance ideas for economic development in areas along the Oregon City waterfront and riverscape. But the quantitative thing here that would do it in a way that it didn't adversely affect the environment, okay? So it describes in a nutshell what would happen. The size of the group, it's about 10 people strong right now. People want to be involved. Some city people want to be involved. I was hoping maybe somebody from this group would like to be a part of this. Part of this has to do with interfacing with Lower Harbor Trust Fund, mitigation monies that are available for Oregon City, which I worked hard on that to get that into Clackamas Cove. And City of Gladstone is receiving significant money to make improvements through that fund. And West Lynn is now doing it. And some of these areas, for instance, the 8th Street dock underneath 8th Street, where it comes out, is a culvert which runs Singer Creek into the river. But that was the site of the most historic dock on the Willamette, where you got on a steamboat, went all sorts of various locations. It's a wonderful fishing area. The dock that could go in there with a different system of attachment, Nick Dirkman, myself, and Don have worked hard with your planning staff too to identify a way, and John Lewis, to do that dock. I'd like to see that dock have floating wetlands as a part of it, if we could ever get it funded. Bill Monroe loves this idea. He's a writer for the Oregonian, and he said, I helped get the money for the dock over in West Lynn, that you have to almost shinny down the bluff below the locks to get to. It's a great fishing dock, but it's very difficult to get to. He said, I want to be a part of an effort to reestablish the 8th Street dock. Sportcraft Landing, the people that own the marina, the docks, have a terrible problem in trying to maintain docks that nobody's putting boats into. There's a certain amount of usership, but there's a lot more potential for floating homes that can be built as a part of the upper dock system and produce an economic benefit to the city. Because the moorage by itself isn't making it, not because it isn't in a good location, because people are not docking boats, and the sea lion population's hurting the fishing and things like that. All right, and then another area of interest that Commissioner Brian Shaw is concerned about, if you're going to put a boat ramp in the park, what do you do to soften the impacts? And we'd like to look at that and some other things that, from a standpoint of Lower Harbor Trust Fund money, is one of our members of this group administers that fund. Could we get some funding in there to soften the effects and break up the bioscape at Clackamas Park and make it more healthy? It needs some work. So then you go up the Clackamas a ways, there's some things that can be done, and then go on into the cove. There's more that is planned to be done. So this group's going to meet for the first time on Wednesday, this November 1st at River Shore Hotel. If there's somebody who'd like to be a part of this group and this assemblage, I'd love to see you. It's my effort with Don Slack and Nick to bring the Business Alliance into really thinking about the river in a different way, not just building on it, but building within it or not building, in a, harmonious way. So it's called the River Assets and Opportunities Task Force. So, anybody got an interest? We're gonna meet 4 times a year. That's about the commitment. Then we'll take ideas to the city as we develop them.
Just what time is it again?
It's at 10 o'clock on
Wednesday?
the 1st of November at River Shore Hotel. They're giving us the use of their restaurant space,
Okay.
which is really nice of them.
Yeah,
So,
I don't go to the meetings, but I'm a paid member of the Alliance too, so.
yeah. Yeah. So,
Okay,
okay.
thank you. Very shortly, you are going to see stream signage coming into Oregon City.
Good.
The Greater Oregon City Watershed Council has made signs for 12 locations.
Wow.
There'll be more than one on Abernathy Creek. There'll be 2, because of the way the city mounts its signs, there will be 2 signs at each location facing the traffic the different directions. They can't mount the signs on just one post, so there has to be 2. The Public Works is supplying the posts and installation.
Wow.
So the signs are made, and indication from one of the Public Works people, Brian Moon. I can't remember his last name. Sorry, is organizing it, but they're starting in on those installations, and we'll probably see some of them going up in the next couple of weeks. Cool. And one of the reasons I mentioning this. These priorities that we listed, one of the things we had, developed signage, public awareness, and the streams were included. And I think Livesey might be on it too. Abernathy, Coffee Creek, Cedar Creek, Newell Creek, Caulfield Creek, Mud Creek, and I believe Livesey Creek also will all have a signage, as well as some unnamed creeks.
Dave Fish Creek.
Huh?
Dave Fish Creek.
Dave Fish Creek. I don't know which one.
Remember that one up by Danielson's complex? That's that stream that comes in right next to Danielson's, where they're building Red Robin or whatever restaurant.
Yeah.
That's all right.
You mean Danielson's old complex?
Yeah, it goes behind them through an apartment complex and feeds on into Newell Creek Canyon.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you'll see those going up. Tour Creek, I don't think we really had a street that we could put through there. So, and Thimble Creek, that's outside the city. Yeah. At this point, the county will not accept our signs, but maybe once the Oregon City gets its signs up, they might have a different thought.
Oh,
yeah, that's cool.
That's really neat. How did you fund this? I mean,
we secured a grant.
Good. Yeah. It's really, and having Public Works put up the signs, that's a real coup, because that takes all the right-of-way stuff.
Martin Montalvo, who is the operation director, is a wetland biologist. It's not that difficult to work with Public Works.
No, but I mean, it's a really good thing. Yeah, very good thing. So how many signs again?
12
sets. So 24 signs, but 12 stream crossings.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And the unnamed ones will just have stream crossing on them.
Neat.
We're not gonna name them for this sign.
Yeah, I've been gone, so I don't have anything.
Yeah,
nothing for me.
Nope.
I'm still busy trying to catch back up physically, so I haven't been involved in a darn thing.
Okay.
I just want to say you look awful good. Your I'm lusting over your hair.
Well, I think your beard, actually, I think your beard's neat. So then, anything from you?
Yeah, I can give a quick update on the McLaughlin to Kanema Trail.
Yes, please,
Yeah.
That's right, I asked for that.
So we, the advisory committee landed on a preferred alignment recommendation at our last meeting. It is the option that kind of goes in front of the PGE substation and then into Old Kanema Park. And then through the park, using the little parking lot and driveway from 3rd Avenue in Kenema, and then routing up to 4th Avenue in Kenema to get to Kenema Children's Park. And so with that recommendation, the advisory group identified a list of safety improvements that really are necessary for everybody's willingness to support that. So that those include, traffic calming within Kenema, of course, providing some sort of barrier along 99E in front of PGE, and closing off the Tumwater Drive left turn from 99E. So if you're coming from the promenade and you're walking by the VFW, going down that little driveway, we don't want cars turning left in there anymore, coming in really quickly. And everything that we can tell is that not very many people do that, but those who do tend to come in fast. And it might be totally fine with ODOT. We have to do some studies to figure it out, but it might be perfectly fine to close off that turn. It wouldn't really affect traffic a whole lot.
You're talking about that one where you go off of 99E, right? And you.
My favorite
That
turn.
would be the greatest turn.
That's my favorite
I would
turn.
think ODOT
Yeah.
would love to close
Right.
that.
We fought ODOT over that very thing. We didn't want it. ODOT forced us to do it.
So it needs to, there's some emergency access, and it's kind of an emergency route for trucks, I believe. If there are issues elsewhere, they would have to reroute trucks to turn around there. And so it needs to exist in some form, but they are willing to work with us to look at whether that is, we're able to close that. So there are lots of little traffic improvements and safety improvements that we're looking at along that trail corridor. And we've identified an interim trail alignment and a permanent trail alignment. They're slightly different because we know the permanent alignment is going to take a while because it's dependent on, it's partially dependent on private development going in between South 2nd and PGE. So where that, there's a collision center, a towing business, and an apartment building, and all that's zoned mixed use. And we've heard inklings of the apartment building owner, coming in very soon for a redevelopment project. So we know that's going to kind of be happening eventually. And so with that, we would have a trail built behind that development so that you don't have people walking along 99. And then that would jog up in front of the PGE substation. PGE's been working with us. They were on the advisory committee, and they're willing to provide an easement through their property for this trail. So we have a lot of implementation work to do now that we have the plan. But the first step is really to get that plan before the city commission to get it adopted. And there are a few amendments that we need to make along with it to the Parks Master Plan, the Trails Master Plan, and the Transportation System Plan, just to revise some projects and add a couple of those safety projects to the list. And that'll go before the city commission in December. So we will have some public hearings coming up that we'll make sure you know about.
By the way, Oregon City Cleanup and Enhancement, one of our projects, that's about 10 years ago, was to do that landscape in there and pull all the boulevard plantings in that turnoff, you're saying, off of 99E. We did that as a donation. A lot of people in this room helped with it. So I hate to see that landscape torn out. If it is, let me know. We'll come salvage it.
All right, I'll make sure we remember that when we're talking with ODOT about the details.
I have a question since you brought up that issue. What in the world is possible or not possible for the Willamette Falls overlook? One-way input heading south just doesn't work for the community. Has any ODOT ever looked at, in other words, stopping to overlook Willamette Falls, there's only one way to do that, and that's southbound.
Right.
I can't even do it with bus tours that I do because the buses can't negotiate that very well. Any thoughts about that? It's such a great view.
Yeah, not that I know of. I would imagine that maybe some people pull off and park at the museum and then maybe walk down there, but the view from the museum parking lot is pretty good too.
Well, and equally, good viewpoint is the backside of Museum of the Oregon Territory. There's a walkway there that I used for the tours that we did. But the trees overlooking the falls would have to be a little bit of high heading and pruning to get a vista through it, but that's quiet. It's beautiful. Here we got this beautiful falls, and you can only see it heading south.
Well, pretty soon we'll have a river walk where people can get really close.
Pretty soon, define.
Well, I'm just saying, the whole view from up above,
Well, what always cracks me up about that, Jerry, is that if you look at historical photos, the views were great because there were no trees. Now, does anybody even know where Coalca Column is?
Yeah, you can see it.
Balanced rock? You can't even see it anymore. It's all covered with trees.
Sometimes you can see it in the winter.
I know one spot southbound, you
Right.
can see it.
Yeah, but only in the winter.
Well, I think we probably
Wore this out.
dealt with our agenda and
Sounds
go ahead
like it.
and close the meeting.
Good, thank you.